Welcome to One Word Stories. Today, episode 21. And I'm really happy to welcome a very precious guest of mine, Iman El Shawaf. Iman comes originally from Egypt, used to live in the United States, Saudi Arabia, then later on in Egypt again, and actually is currently in Istanbul in Turkey. So lots of experience in the so-called Arabic culture. And this is exactly the focus of our stories. Because Iman not only brings this vast experience in Arabic cultural and the language, she is currently doing her PhD in reading psychology and is the expert in multilingualism. And I'm really thrilled that you have found time for us, Iman, because you are turning in your dissertation in 2 weeks from now. So, wow, a big step. Welcome.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for everything. And it's my pleasure. I'm very grateful for this opportunity.
I'm really eager to hear lots of stories you are bringing. Imani is kind of a Scheherezade, so you can imagine she can keep telling stories for 1001 nights.
I think the story is such a great educational tool. I work as an educator, but I remember that ages 19 years ago, when I was a teacher, I got pregnant in my third child, and it was very difficult to go for classroom teaching. I was the homeroom teacher. So I was very lucky to get an opportunity of being the storyteller in the school. It was the KG department in an Egyptian school. I first wondered, how will I serve in this position? I know how to deal with my own students in the classroom, give them all the instructions, manage the class. But then I took it as an opportunity again. Why not? Why staying at home if I can still be within the school context and do something? And when I started doing this mission, I enjoyed it to the most because I felt that what I have been doing in a week inside my classroom, uh, emphasizing the concept, teaching it, passing the information, and then working more and more would have been delivered immediately in 40 minutes within one story. The characters are doing this, this is what happened, the conclusion is there, and you can just smile to the child and tell them, you don't want to be like Baby Bear when he did that. You don't want to be like Goldilocks when she opened the door and came to a house where she found bears, and the kids would obey. So I realized how stories could create miracles.
Wonderful. Yeah, we know it not only from the kids' education that stories can
All right.
can be miracles. We also know it from the adult education and in general, how leaders actually can work with stories. Also, female leaders, because of course the female leadership varies much from the male leadership, and women tend to share more stories, especially stories of struggle and what they have learned out of them. So, we can work with stories to motivate our employees, team members. We can also the students, of course. We can inspire them to take action. We can also just share the stories of vulnerability, so that people see, okay, they are also referring to the struggle and they see how they can be overcome. So this is really, a huge diversity how we can work with stories. And one of the idea that comes to my head is actually also this stories breaking with stereotypes. And this is also why we actually are meeting today, because so many people refer to the Arab culture and Arabic countries and generalize a lot. And Iman, you have had your experiences in so many different corners of the world, that you are the person to go in terms of breaking with some stereotypes.
Yes, the idea of stereotyping is affecting everyone, even those who are inside the context within the same society. So I remember, as you mentioned, I started in the United States where my father was doing his PhD. I was a child. I was a student there, but then when we moved after he obtained his degree and we moved to Saudi Arabia where he joined the United Nations, I felt that this was a shock. As a child, I remember that it's a totally different culture, and the only thing that made me I can't remember how hard, I mean, how long was it to accommodate, but still, the only thing was the the warm context that I met inside the school, the warmth of the teachers and the welcoming of the colleagues. So while the society, I always hear people talking about Riyadh in particular, where I lived. Riyadh is the capital of Saudi Arabia, as a very closed city, and it's quite, especially when ladies are joining there with their husbands, and they would claim that it might be a little bit boring with less activities for women. I just recall the picture of the Saudi teachers that worked very closely with their students to deliver the information, to welcome the international students, and to make sure that not only the studies but also the culture was passed. So my memories there, I mean, my memories have nothing to do with the outside, the city, the closed city with ladies wearing black. No ladies were driving by the time I was there. So this is the picture that most of the people talk about Riyadh. But as an insider, though I wasn't an insider, I was a foreigner, but I mean, as an insider within their schools, I would tell you that it's it's a city full of life. People were very warm, and it's not what you see from outside. You need to dig further. You need to meet people from this culture and to ask them about their feelings, their lives, their stories. My stories in Riyadh were mainly reflected as a student because I graduated from. I got my American diploma and I got my GCE at the same time. I studied. I got two certificates because we were not sure that whatever we get from there would be acceptable. And then I moved to Egypt to join the university. And another stereotype where I thought, okay, in Egypt, it's an extension of Saudi Arabia. I used to go to Egypt only over the summer, a couple of weeks, no more than 4 weeks maximum. So when it was time to move there, I felt, okay, whatever fun I had during the summer would be the situation for the whole year. But then I came closer to Egyptians where I belong to, but I've never had a chance to really be aware of their issues, their problems, their struggles, their challenges. And I felt how different, again, it is to judge the country from the movies, from the media. Because what we used to see in the movies are either very, very poor people or filthy rich families. And it was neither nor. I belong to the middle class where we fight for education. Education is the most important part in our lives. And this is where many of my friends devote. I mean, their balance, their budget is mainly devoted to education, educating their kids, professional development courses. So that was something that is not always reflected in the media. We export scientists and doctors to all over the world. By we, I mean Egyptians, of course. Though I usually say we to the Arab world, because I feel I very much believe in diversity. So after Egypt, again in Egypt, I again thought that Turkey is one part of this world. I, and then I had the chance to spend my honeymoon in Turkey, a quick visit. I realized they don't speak Arabic, they don't speak English. It was a quick visit for a couple of weeks, and I decided no more Turkey. That was that was 26 years ago. Thank you very much. Thank you for the memories. See, life has its share. So whatever you plan, I remember my husband was pushing for after a couple of years, why not revisiting Turkey? And I'm like, thank you very much. You want to go, you go there alone. It wasn't the best experience for me, especially with this lack of language. No one was able to communicate in our Arabic or English. Years after, when I started having my studies, I started doing I started my first doctorate in 2010. And by that time, I went through some downs where so it was the first time for me to watch a Turkish production, a Turkish series, and I realized how clever my Turkish friends are in embedding their culture in the production, which is something I really need to see in Egyptian productions. As I told you, we either see them very poor or very rich, but in Turkish movies and series and media, they're adding every single thing they're doing, which attracted my attention. But that wasn't the experience I had when I was in the honeymoon. I started getting involved until I found myself deeply attracted. And when my supervisor asked me, "Where have you been?" I said, "I had some time to spend with myself. I wasn't really feeling well." And she started asking me about Turkey when I told her that I am spending some time watching some Turkish production. She said, "Is this because of the language?" She thought, just as you did, that they speak Arabic. Actually, Turkish friends do not speak Arabic. It's not an Arabic speaking country. And no more Arabic letters. They used to use the Arabic letters, but now they're using the Latin letters. So the only common part is when they are reading the Holy Book. And I realized how difficult this is now because they don't have the Arabic letters in their alphabets anymore. So they're doing as much, I mean, double the effort to read the Holy Book that Arabic speaking friends can do. When I started, she offered, "Okay, do you want to use this experience and learn more about the culture and include it in your research?" And that was a great opportunity where I traveled to Turkey. I studied the language. I was lucky enough and I had a great opportunity to deal with multilingual students who are Arabic, English, and Turkish speakers. And I got to compare their reading skills, their reading patterns and profiles. And I got to know more about the culture. So only then I realized again that this stereotyping is such a sin that we're doing to ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And what you are just referring to, that it's not only about a certain geographical location, so to say, so a certain part of the Arabic world, but also so much about history and development. Because, of course, you know, when I can refer to your example with Saudi Arabia, it has changed enormously since then.
Enormously.
So yeah, and also when we think of the Arab Spring and everything what happened afterwards in different Arabic countries. Of course, right now, completely different story in Turkey. You cannot really compare it with the time during the Ataturk govern when he actually introduced also the Latin letters and wanted to westernize the country and so on and so forth. So, you know, everything is in flow, so to say. Yeah. And that's why it's so tricky to use this really worn out, worn off stories that we tend to repeat without really thinking so much.
Joanna, it's the same country, the same city, Istanbul, that I felt really bored in. And I wasn't a big fan of revisiting 25 years ago, is the same country where I'm really inviting friends, including you, of course, to come and visit and not to miss the beauty of. The only key, I believe, was understanding the culture and getting some of the language, because this is the key to my Turkish friends. They very much appreciate and admire their visitors when they just make a simple trial of using their language and coming closer. I was using English in my first visit, and I was in this touristic area where, so I only dealt with those who are willing to deal with tourists. But when I came inside the city, when I mastered, of course, I'm not asking everyone to master the language, but it's this warmth, the smile, to understand the key, the culture, what to do, what not to do, what to follow, taking off your shoes when you're coming into a house, greeting and smiling, and covering your head when you're inside the mosque, of course. These simple cultural tips that might open doors. So same city showed me two different sides just because a little bit of research I did or a little bit of effort trying to understand. Same with Saudi Arabia, because as I'm telling you, I've I've always been listening to stories about the oppressed ladies. But when I went to the UK and when I met, I was studying in UCL, University College London, one of the very, very well recognized universities. And I met more Saudi ladies than I met from other countries. They're very successful. And the way they're willing to change the world, not even their own country, is quite impressive. But we don't see this in the media. We just see the negative stories. What's happening to this lady after she got oppressed, the lady who was forced to stay at home. So, yes, of course, such stories exist. But why don't we just give equal opportunities to, to both sides of the story, to the two polars of the universe?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And also this balanced media coverage. Yeah.
Yeah, media
So,
coverage. Tell
yeah.
me about.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's really fascinating because when I teach the journalistic students, it's also, part of our classes, how to make sure that we bring really this cultural intelligence and intercultural competencies in the media world, so to say. It doesn't really matter whether they record their messages and interviews for radio or TV, or they are writing articles for
Yeah.
internet or for print media, so that they are really trying to give this balanced picture. And it's tricky. It's tricky because, we are so much into this world of stories, so to say, that were passed on from one generation to the other, that actually right now we dare to question many of them. What
It's
stories
a
do you think should be questioned in this context of female power in the Arabic countries?
Well, actually, I think it's not fair to have uh, to have red lines in such topics. I think it's time after the universe is opening and after now the world has become one big village to highlight everything, especially that there are different stories. I mean, as I told you, it's we should highlight everything, and then the reader or the person on the other side would choose what to read, what not to read, what his own awareness would be built. Okay, I still want to have this picture about no, this is such a conservative country that I don't want to deal with, or oh really, there are opportunities here, maybe for business, maybe for visits, maybe even for um, starting another part of my life, moving to the other side of the world. So I think we should be sharing everything. I still believe, of course, this triangle of religion, sex, and politics that we're always avoiding could be respected for a while. But otherwise, as long as there are stories that are representing people, their lives, their experiences, and we should appreciate this and keep it as it is. Ask the person to share the part of his life that he is willing to share without any restrictions. Give
Mm,
more opportunities to ladies and let them write their own books. Let them share. Let them without having this. If you say this, this is there's this Arabic Turkish word says um, aib, or my Turkish friend says aib, which is like it's not allowed to. It's what a shame.
mm-hmm.
So you always, whatever you do, there's always this word of aib, 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 aib. That keeps restricting the sort of what to do, what not to do, what to share, what not to share. I think it's time, as long as we are respecting others and it's not um, crossing borders of the freedom of others. Why not? Why are we still having these obstacles?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. When you mention this word, it also comes to my head that I also had a wonderful conversation with two young ladies from Morocco, from Casablanca, and they also mentioned the word shuma. Yeah, shuma. So it's kind of shame on you. Yeah, you shouldn't do
Hmm.
it. So don't do it because it's not allowed in this context, and so on and so forth.
I think it's the same as aib. And look, this is something that you have just raised because I have many Tunisian and friends from this side of the world, but we don't share the same words. Many of the words. I don't know shuma, for example. It's a new word for me. And when we first handled, when I first started to know my these friends, we started to introduce our dictionary, our vocabulary, because not all words were common. Yet people from outside think that if I learn one Arabic word, it's a one size fits to all Arabic cultures, which is not true unless it's a classical Arabic word maybe coming from the holy book or coming from this old dictionary. Otherwise, we have in Arabic this um, phenomena called diglossia. And diglossia is simply that we have two versions of the language that we read, or the classical language, and the language that we use verbally, the one that we are communicating with. And sometimes they are completely different. I'll just give you a simple example with this. There's this letter qa in Arabic that in Egypt, we use it as an a. Every single word with a qa, although we write it as a qa, we say it as an a. And friends from Saudi Arabia write the same letter qa, and they write it and they pronounce it as a g, which is a totally different word.
Mm.
So when I'm mentioning a word with an a and they're mentioning the word with a g, sometimes we just miscommunicate unless we go back to the written version and we understand. So shuma, I think clearly are giving the same meaning, but I've never heard this shuma before, and I'm not sure if they're aware of the word aib or whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
So, but outsiders would definitely just get one word, maybe shuma, and then come and communicate with me and expect me to understand it. So yes, I mean, the Arabic world is a very, very big world, and it needs the effort of digging deeper to
yeah,
understand different parts in there.
yeah, yeah. And you have just mentioned the word expectation. So it's not only in terms of the expectations towards speaking the Arabic language that you know that it's assumed that people need to understand one another, but also in terms of the dress code.
The dress code,
Yeah,
the hijab.
yeah.
Yes.
So may I ask you to share the moment when you yourself you said yes to the hijab?
Oh yes, being brought up in Saudi Arabia, many friends think this is something I got from there, but the reality is no, actually, because as I told you, number one in Saudi Arabia, by the time I was there, they had closed societies for women, so the women were not wearing the hijab unless they're outside in a place where they get mixed, so they were not forced to use it inside these societies, and you will see them well dressed, having the I mean, I've seen in Saudi Arabia shops that are selling dresses from Italy and France more than I've seen in any other countries, unless we're talking about France itself. And my Saudi friends are mostly well dressed, and they do appreciate very much what's in what's recently released. So so we were not forced. I wasn't forced unless I was in a shopping mall or something that we get to wear this black abaya and get covered, which I claim that it's more of a custom rather than it's the individual choice, because whether the ladies were veiled or they were not veiled, they had to wear this by that time, just to be outside, respecting the culture and obeying the rules of the country. See, so when they were outside, you would realize, okay, some of them would come to Egypt or travel to other countries, and you would see the pictures with colored veils, and some of them wouldn't at all. I graduated from Saudi Arabia, and I moved to Egypt, and I wasn't veiled by that time. And I think it was I was rebelling because my mom was sort of encouraging, pushing, when are you going to put this on? And I told her, I don't think I will. Until I was almost 20 when I started understanding, because I had a lot of questions in my mind, and I was exposed to many arguments whether shouldn't we, why is it doing, why is it not doing, what's the idea of this? And I had my own research, which is I claim that this is the thing that kept me on the path. I've been wearing my hijab for more than 28 years now. And the point is that because I answered my own questions. Why am I wearing this? And what difference will it make? It took me some research, and I realized I used to visit friends in the, I mean, to visit churches with my friends, whether there's something to congratulate or to share any occasions. And I realized that even inside the church, my friends would put something on their heads. The Mother Mary is always covered. So it took me from there. So it's not something that we claim to be cultural, but rather it contributes to my idea of my religion is not a unique religion. It's an extension of all previous religions, pushing morals, pushing principles, and emphasizing on the behavior of a good human being. It's just the rituals that might differ from one generation to another until we received our holy book. And inside the holy book, which many people might have misinterpreted the verses or the signs, we call them ayahs. There are two clear ayahs. I read them, I tried to understand them. I read all the arguments about them. And these two ayahs are clearly explaining the dress code of the Muslim woman. One of them is talking about the khimar, which is already in Arabic, khimar is the coverage of the heads. And it took it as a default because I think ladies used to cover their heads, but in different ways. So the ayah is specifying that use your khimar to cover the whole area of your chest, of here. And this is not talking about put your khimar on or cover your head, but rather it's specifying how to extend and how to use it properly. That was the first one. And the other one was talking about the jalabib, which is a dress, or the galabeya, I guess
Mhm.
you might. It's just that make sure that you are elongating them. You're wearing such a long galabeya that would cover the rest of the whole body. So it's we have two ayahs. One of them is handling the upper part clearly, which is just an extension of the khimar to lower it. And the other one is talking about the body, the galabiya, and again you're lowering it. It took me some time after understanding, okay, now I'm sure I need to do that. But and I think this is a fear of many of my friends not wearing the hijab of the consistency. Okay, what if I did and then I felt that I can't do it? I'll be blamed by the culture. I'll be blamed by the society. So I'd rather just postpone the decision until I think I can do it or I'm ready. And this was my question: what if I'm never ready? And what if I got ready a bit late? So and then one of the stories here, a friend of mine was eager to join, and she's always fighting for her freedom, and she thinks that being a crew member in one of the famous airlines would take her to this freedom thing, and it's her chance to travel all over the world and get rid of all the restrictions her parents are putting. And the minute she had this great opportunity, she was dancing. She was on the moon from happiness. And then she was discussing with me the dress code of this airline. And I joked. I said, okay, so it's not what your freedom is restricted in a way because you cannot wear something special every day. You will continue to wear the same thing. And she looked at me and she said, this is a dress code. I got this word and I reflected immediately. Why not? Okay, she is joining one famous company. I'm joining a famous religion. So I took it as a dress code. And whenever I'm asked, because actually, and I respect this question very much, I'm always asked about what about this hijab? Were you oppressed? Are you really behind there's a story behind you being pushed to wear it? I always say, no, it's my dress code. So I used her words because, and I took the restrictions. Okay, it doesn't have to be as black as my Saudi friends used to wear. It doesn't have to be as, it has certain points, just like a regular dress code in any clear organization where they would tell you, make it this, 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 and avoid this, this, this. That's all what we need to do. Since then, I got satisfied. I'm not telling you that I didn't have my downs. Of course, just as all other friends, when you face the situation sometimes where do I really want to continue? Can I continue? But with your dress code, you might question all the time, but when you're going to work, you're there. You just, no matter how you feel, it's a respect, and many other things would make it lighter.
Yeah, yeah, I remember when we met, actually, you were wearing such a beautiful Italian scarf on your head, and it was really very, very fancy also the way you were wearing it. And then when I had the chance also to visit Bahrain, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, and Oman, I saw also different versions. Yeah, so women are really very, very diverse over there and have got fantastic, very inspiring ideas how to cover their heads. And
It
yeah,
it's
uh,
a challenge sometimes, but still you can bring out of this challenge another opportunity of okay, what is not available, what's not allowed is something, but definitely there are things that I can still use and I can still find my way. So acceptance is one big step that you always need. Maybe even me working with with special needs, it's taking us to another dimension. But I mean, yes, the minute you give the parents all the information and let them know these are the challenges, but we still have opportunities. Maybe we can still focus here, focus there. This is the time where they start being very creative and finding ways. And this was one of the stories I've watched in your program where Shannon, I think this was episode 18, when she said that with her Down syndrome daughter, it opened doors and she changed everything and she started changing her own vision and the way she perceived this knowledge was amazing. She's not only helping herself as a parent, but she is a person who's helping many parents just out of the same challenge. Instead of just facing it as a desperate parent, what shall I do? Let me just accept. Accepting is taking her further. So yes, I got this from yours, from your program. See, so I'm learning.
Oh, me too. I'm learning so much with my guests and with you
Yeah,
also a lot because it's really really amazing whenever we meet. I feel it's such a rich conversation and you bring so many ideas, so many inspirations, so many new insights. And this brings me to another question, obviously, just like I ask Shannon, just like I ask all my guests. What was actually this one word that was supportive for you in this turbulent times last year, this year, so that you considered really very, very powerful and helpful? And what is the story behind, of course?
yeah, the story, all stories. It's I I I think many words, of course, but I think one special word for me is opportunity. Opportunity comes sometimes in the meaning of a way out, but sometimes also it gives, when you translate it, you'll find its equivalent or a synonym of the word chance. Even I was looking in Arabic, they call it fursa, and in Turkish they call it fursat because there are some common words between Arabic and Turkish. So this is one of the common words between the two languages. And for me, this idea of finding the chance, finding the opportunity out behind every obstacle, because yes, we do have obstacles in our lives. One of them was the COVID or the pandemic, for example. So no matter how rebellious you are, you were stuck. It's over. So we were not able to leave the house. We were not able to practice our normal lives. So some people got depressed, I believe. Others found their opportunities, and I hope I was one of those because I started. Okay, I cannot go out, but what can I do inside? I think just like many friends, it was a great chance to discover my place and clean every single corner in the house, go and bake and create. But it was also a very good chance to learn more, to read more books. I had many books on the shelf that were not read. It was a great chance and opportunity to read more books, to discover more in this IT world that we thought we master. But when it was the real time for this virtual and distance learning, we realized that there's still more to learn and more to achieve and more to master. It was a good chance to boost my team because I belong to the leadership team in my organization. And it was time to go behind every single person, get to know, follow their stories, see what's happening, who got sick, who wasn't, who is depressed. So although physically we were not in the same place, but I claim we got attached and we were closer because it was the time to make sure that you're following every single person. My kids were in two different countries. I had no access to see them, and I was so worried that one of them might get sick. Luckily, it did not happen. But this was a chance to create this routine of okay, I'll call you every morning and check on you, and I'll call you at night. Sometimes when he's out, he's out, so there's no chance to reply. But I knew he wouldn't be out, so he had no chance to, to reject my phone call. And they started, oh my goodness, when is this pandemic situation ending so that we could get back to our lives and get rid of this daily routine thing? But I created a routine that I'm trying to keep. So it was an opportunity in a way. Yes, it was a challenge. It was difficult, but I still believe behind every obstacle there is an opportunity.
Wonderful, wonderful, because this is also something that is like a life motto. Yeah. So searching also for something optimistic, something really very, very positive in every situation and learning out of this.
I think it's due to the, this is cultural, due to the many, many challenges Egyptian face. Um, Joking is part of the Egyptian character in a way. So when I moved to Turkey, I realized I think they're being affected now with the more outsiders, the more foreigners they're meeting. But previously, it wasn't the same. And you would just mention the word shaka, which means joke, before you give a joke. Otherwise, they won't get it, and they would get annoyed or even offended. So you have to tell them shaka, which is okay. I will joke or I joked, and then they would just because really they're very kind. It's okay if this is a joke, then let me take it as a joke. You know what I mean? But here in Egypt, they just take it even if it wasn't meant to be a joke. Sometimes the reaction is built on the perception of this is a joke. I'm not gonna take you serious.
Yeah, yeah. So the sense of humor is also culture specific.
Seems to be.
Ah, Iman, thank you very, very much for all your stories, all your insights, for sharing with us so many ideas, what it actually means to travel, to get to know, also to work in the different Arab countries. And really to move away from the stereotype, oh, this is really a homogeneous part of the world. Not at all.
My pleasure, and it was a very, very good opportunity.
Ah, yes.
فرصة, yes, it was
So
a very, I would say فرصة سعيدة, which is a happy opportunity. So yes, thank you very much. Actually, it's me who should thank you for this great opportunity. Thank you very much, Joanna.
thank you. And I'm crossing
Thank
my
you.
fingers for your PhD.
Thank you very
That
much.
it's also a great opportunity to open new doors for you.
Let's hope so. Thank you very much.
Thank you.